Part 2. I'm not sure there ever were any shark worms, said Hiccup through gritted teeth. He looked back sadly at the 3 circles of ripples and bubbles that were all that remained of the hopeful Puffin. She had never been the most beautiful of boats, but to him she was the best. Slipping and sliding on the seaweedy rocks, they clambered reluctantly towards Gobber and stood before him soaking wet, heads bowed. Fishlegs timidly offered him the Roman helmet. Gobber was not amused. "What?" he bellowed, pointing furiously at the Roman helmet. "What in the name of Woden is this?" A Roman helmet, sir," admitted Fishlegs. "We sort of accidentally boarded a Roman ship by mistake. We got lost, you see, sir." "You got lost?" boomed Gobber, not believing his ears. "Vikings don't get lost. And how could you possibly board a Roman ship by mistake? A Roman ship doesn't look anything like a peaceable fishing boat." "Yeah, I know, sir," stammered Fishlegs, "but we thought there were these shark worms, you see." "And where," Gobber interrupted Fishlegs, his voice dangerously calm. I should probably read that again in a calm way. "And where," Gobber interrupted Fishlegs, his voice dangerously calm, "where is your boat?" "Ah, yes, well," said Fishlegs miserably, "the boat sort of sank, sir." "The boat sort of sank? You call yourselves Vikings and you sort of sink your own boat on a perfectly calm day 200 metres from your own island? What kind of hooligans are you? You can't build boats, you can't train dragons. Fishlegs here can't even swim." "Salt water brings out my eczema," mumbled Fishlegs. "You're supposed to be a pirate," howled Gobber. "As it is, you are the most useless, miserable, pathetic excuses for tadpole poos I've ever met in my entire life. I am lost for words." Despite being lost for words, Gobber yelled at them for the next 10 minutes, telling them they were a disgrace to their tribe and the worst recruits he'd ever had. He put them on limpet rations for the next 3 weeks and said the next time anything like this happened, they would be expelled from the programme. And at home it wasn't much better. During supper, Hiccup explained to his father about the unfortunate accident of boarding the Roman galley by mistake, and about the kidnapping of Toothless, and how the prefect had got hold of half of How to Speak Dragonese, and how Stoic really should send a war party to rescue Toothless and the book. Hiccup showed the sad remains of How to Speak Dragonese and the Roman helmet to his father to prove that his story was genuine. Said Stoic thoughtfully. Stoic was a great giant of a man with enough red haystacky beard and barrels of belly to kit out at least 2 decent-sized Viking chieftains. He wasn't really concentrating because he was reading Hiccup's pirate training report, which was the worst report that he'd ever read. Thumbnails of Thor, he was thinking. How can anybody get 4, -4, for advanced rudery, and nothing at all for beginner burping and hammer-throwing studies, which had been Stoic's favourite subjects when he was a boy? Stoic was trying very hard not to feel disappointed in his son. He kept telling himself that Hiccup was just a slow developer and would soon start getting muscles and nose hair and scoring the winning goal in bashyball games like Stoic had himself. But what was he doing, earning reports like, "Hiccup is the worst sailor I have ever taught in 20 years. How could he have come back from a perfectly straightforward training exercise having misplaced both his dragon and his boat? And how could he possibly have got lost and accidentally boarded a Roman ship rather than a peaceable fishing boat? Vikings don't get lost." Stoic opened his mouth to bellow at his son, and then he closed it again. Small, skinny, freckled, and unsatisfactory, Hiccup's worried face looked up at him. He was clearly desperately anxious about that laughably tiny dragon of his. Stoic didn't have the heart to be angry. He crumpled up the report in one gigantic fist. Here is his report card. And it says things like, beginner burping. Hiccup cannot get up the necessary wind to do well in this subject. 0 out of 10. Frightening foreigners. must stop speaking in impeccable French and work on his yelling. 1 out of 10. Hammer throwing might improve when he can actually pick up the hammer. Sword fighting. Quick reflexes and strong, fancy footwork. I'm impressed. Needs to work on his aggression. 9 out of 10. Shipbuilding. I have grave doubts that the hopeful Puffin will float. Boarding an enemy ship. Hiccup is the worst sailor I have ever taught in 20 years. Bashyball spends most of his time in the mud being sat on. So basically he's got 0 out of 10 or 1 out of 10 apart from sword fighting. He's a good sword fighter, Hiccup. We learned that in the first book. -4 out of 10 for advanced rudery. I like that one. Advanced rudery. Meaning being rude. I think it's a sort of made up word. I've never actually heard the word rude written as rudery. Son, he said gently and gravely, which means seriously. I am sorry you have lost Ruthless. Toothless, Hiccup interrupted indignantly. He's called Toothless. Sorry, Toothless. Stoic corrected himself hurriedly. But I am about to tell you something very important. Stoic took Hiccup by the shoulders and looked him in the eyes. You, he said solemnly, are the son of a chief. You have lost your pet, but you must be brave. You must be a man about it. There will be other dragons. Yeah, not like Toothless, objected Hiccup in distress. That dragon trusted me and I let him down. Silence, said Stoic sternly. What does a chief feel, son? A chief feels no pain, replied Hiccup obediently. But father, Stoic was just getting into his stride. A chief feels no pain. A chief feels no fear. A chief must be above mere weak, personal feelings. There is no question of putting together a war party to rescue your dragon. It would be a waste of our warriors' time. The Romans are probably halfway back to Rome by now, and they'll have turned useless into a handbag. Toothless, corrected Hiccup again. And that's what I'm telling you, father. I overheard them talking, and I think they're not just passing through. Talking, roared Stoic, his eyebrows lowering. What do you mean, talking? How did you understand these Romans? Well, old Wrinkly's been teaching me some Latin, you see. Latin? Stoic exploded. He crashed his fist so hard on the table that the oysters they'd been tucking into did a couple of cartwheels in the air. My son has been speaking Latin? He controlled himself with an effort. Hooligans do not, I repeat, do not speak Latin. What are they teaching you in your frightening foreigners' lessons? When a hooligan meets a foreigner, he shouts at it loudly and slowly. That's the only language a foreigner understands. Hooligans don't talk to dragons either, or write books about them. You're spending far too much time scribbling about dragons and not enough time preparing to become a chief. Stoic took the half of How to Speak Dragonese out of Hiccup's hands and threw it on the fire. Hiccup gasped. That book had everything he'd ever learned about dragons in it. What would he ever talk to dragons again without it? How would he ever talk to dragons again without it? Stoic stomped off. As soon as he was out of sight, Hiccup burned his fingers, pulling the book out of the flames. Luckily, it was still quite damp and the edges were only very slightly burned. That night, for the first time in a long, long while, Hiccup had to go to bed without the company of Toothless. The little dragon was a small, wriggling, snoring hot water bottle. And now Hiccup lay awake till the early hours of the morning, shivering uncontrollably under the thin covers, his feet and hands as cold as the North Pole, his ears trembling in the icy draught. And when eventually he slipped in and out of a feverish sleep, the night dragons and the wind and the wolves seemed to be howling all together. You've lost Toothless, lost him forever. Lost Toothless, lost him forever and ever and ever. Over and over and over again. Poor old Hiccup. You would think, wouldn't you, that everyone would be really impressed that he had boarded a Roman galley and escaped. But I think that they will soon start to realise the rest of the tribe will soon start to realise that Hiccup has very important information. Right, everybody? Hope you enjoyed it. See you tomorrow.